welcome to the Collingwood Rant and the grand final Post-Mortem. I am Sly.
And I am Groundhog Day Spook.
So it's going to be a little bit more subdued, an episode for obvious reasons. We're going to break down the grand final and look at each facet of the game.
Yeah, I'd like to break down the grand final.
Spook.
Yes.
To begin, in one word, just one word, I don't care what the word is, you can swear, I think profanity may be called for. Sum up how you're feeling about the grand final loss. Okay, and me, livid. Still. Alright, so let's look at the game tactically. So taking the emotion out of it, let's just look at it tactically, the way it unfolded. Great start, 5 goals to, I think, 1 point.
For the bulk of the quarter. Yeah.
Yep. At that stage, a lot of people were probably already celebrating in the stands. That could be something which, though, motivated them to play with abandon. This is West Coast, not us. And
clearly.
Yeah, and as far as we go, like I've spoken to some people go, you should be losing from 5 goals down. In the modern game, 5 goals is nothing. And in the last couple of minutes, they kicked 2 goals. The first one, which is that really fluky over the line.
Fucking falls on the ball.
Yeah, basically. Langdon probably should have done better to run it through. Probably should have grabbed it and ran it through like a try.
You should, because you just never know when someone's going to drop out of the sky and have their foot land on the fucking ball and roll through.
Now, with this game, being 5 goals up, I'm always a little bit worried when you get those really fast starts. But the team feels like, shit, we're in front now, and they lose a bit of that abandon to play with the style that got them in front, and instead start to play a little bit more defensively, start to play a little bit more cautiously, just thinking, let's just not cough up the lead. Now, 20 minutes into a game is probably not the time to be thinking like that, which is why I'm really cautious of those sort of starts. Against Richmond, I felt that same sort of thing throughout the first half, and I was worried in the third quarter. But against Richmond, I think they went into it as the underdogs, and they felt we have nothing to lose no matter what. If Richmond come back, people will say, well, that's why they're...
You wouldn't take that mindset into a grand final, would you?
I don't think it's a conscious choice. I think it's just sometimes they can click, and sometimes it's not about the whole 22 players clicking into that mindset. It just might be a couple, and that might be infectious. The second quarter, Eagles really fought back. They started dropping players back that stopped us getting that run on.
Was gone.
Yeah, and we were getting very little out of the midfield. We have this much vaunted midfield. Grundy reminded me of Brodie Grundy of about 2-3 years ago, although he got 98 taps. He seemed to be jumping early, he seemed to be jumping under it. And
I hate the fact you're making me remember all this.
And I just didn't see a lot of run from our stoppages. It was just like every time they seemed to get the clearances, they seemed to get the clean disposal out of that. At half-time, we're a couple of goals up.
Yeah, I think just going back to that second quarter too, I think and we talked about this a little bit before, is that defensive mindset just came in too early for them. They just stopped being that really freewheeling attacking side, just went ultra-conservative, and that was the start of the downfall for me.
Retrospectively, they probably should have thrown someone like the Goey in there earlier, who plays fearlessly. Pendlebury, there is something major wrong there. You mentioned a couple of weeks ago or last week that he looked gaunt. I saw his jumper fluttering and it looked really loose on him. He obviously struggled. I mean, that first kick we got the goal from, he basically grubbed it. He seemed listless, didn't seem to have much endurance, never really seemed to be himself at any stage in the game. And Sidebottom was just tagged out of it. Treloar, I thought was okay, but he really seems to be wary of stretching those hamstrings again.
But that's sort of understandable. He's hamstrung by his hamstrings. But, it's not going to be until he has a proper pre-season that he has confidence in his run. He came in half-cooked, and a lot of the time he played like that as well. I mean, he just didn't have that breakaway pace.
Well, the query is then, should they have played him? Because his breakaway pace is his asset. Now, you take that away, he's Tom Phillips.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he was super terrible in the final series. So you probably
I thought he was good, but maybe
you'd probably tick it as a win.
Well, maybe
who would have
thought he'd be in there at all? But they might have done something like throwing him up the full forward or just something different.
But who would have come in over the top of him though? That's the other thing.
No, I don't know. Jared Blair.
Now we're talking.
Third quarter, it really began to be reminiscent of the 2010 Grand Final draw, the second half. I actually felt like this from the second quarter. It was like we had the lead, and instead of playing that game that got us the lead, we really just seemed to be trying to protect that lead. And the only time we actually did anything was out of sheer desperation when some player provided some individual brilliance. 3/4 time, scores were tied. So what were your thoughts at this point?
Oh, look, I was shitting king-size bricks, like no doubt about it. I mean, the thing is, the mindset for the Collingwood supporter is you just know what's coming. It's like it's inevitable. You'd like to sit there and pretend for a little while about what it would be like to actually maybe snatch this, but you just have that voice in the back of your head that just says, just prepare yourself. You know they're going to run over us. They're going to do something. Something will fail at some point, and sure enough.
And this is when you would need someone to stand up and go, I'm going to win this game for us. I will drag us over the line. I will be the one that produces the moment of individual brilliance, and you're going to jump on my back, and I'll carry the lot of you all the way in.
Yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't get onto the ground, though.
The last quarter, we opened up with the first 2 goals, and I really thought, you know what? Shit, I think it's going to be like the GWS game.
I think Cox had that mark not long after that, too.
Yeah.
I think, and that would have
put quite a bit of doubt into him.
A few coulda, woulda, shouldas.
And again, you look at that, those first 2 goals. It was the Myercheck Rove and the snap, I think it was.
Yeah.
And then the Degoe long goal.
Mm-hmm.
And that Degoe long goal, that whole bit of play is Sidebottom, who very little that game. He won the ball and he fired out this fucking beautiful handball, totally against his own momentum. Yep. Straight in front of Degoe, so basically did not have to break stride. And Degoe just grabbed it and, off a couple of steps, just drilled it 55, 60 metres and kicked the goal. And at that point, I thought, we are on. West Coast, we'll talk about some of this a bit later too, but West Coast fought back. We got the next goal. And then it really felt like if we weren't in our shells already, or if we'd found a way to actually be a little bit more proactive in the first 10, 15 minutes, it felt like, shit, protect the lead, protect the lead, protect the lead.
Yeah, we panicked a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of our decisions going out of defence were deplorable.
And
I think, they were jumping the gun, but the bit that stuck into my head was I think Howe had about 3 kick-outs in a row,
and
they were just bombed straight to West Coast players. You think, it's not the time to be doing this.
No.
That bomb, just fuck it off.
And the one I always point at is on about centre wing. Chris took that really good mark. He went over the pack, he took it. And to me, it was very reminiscent of Nick Maxwell's mark in the grand final draw, where he sort of darted in front, took the mark. I can't remember who kicked it off. I think it was McCaffrey or Sidebottom, but he kicked it long and ended up in the goal that put us back in front. And Maxwell says it in that documentary, The Grand Final Draw. He talks about, he knew the game was slipping away, and he said, I'm not going to lose it doing nothing. I'd rather lose it trying something than just sitting back and letting this happen. And if you parallel those 2 instances, Maxwell said, I'm fucking taking the game on. Chris took a really good mark and then turned around and kicked it 40 metres backwards to Langdon. And there was no switch or anything on. Langdon was just a centre-half forward. So after Langdon marked and then stepped back, he's now 50 metres back from the position where he first had the ball. And I thought that was just a really defensive mindset. I'm not blaming Chris specifically, because I think a lot of the players went into this sort of headspace. Yeah. And once they went into that headspace, you weren't really going to construct an avenue to goal. And the few attempts they did have, I remember Adam sort of threaded out of the pack and then just totally missed the goals and all that. It was really going to require some individual brilliance, which just had been lacking from a lot of the game. So West Coast then go forward, they kick a goal. There's about 90 seconds left, and if you watch that last 2 minutes, I've watched it once, I will never watch it again. They ball it up. Maynard actually wins the ball and handballs to Pendlebury, but he actually overshoots Pendlebury, so West Coast win the ball, they go forward. They kick a point. They should have got a goal, but it got snapped or passed to Darling in the goal square. He dropped a sitter. Howe rode the ball. He got tackled. That one should have been holding the ball. But it ends up going through for a point. And then Maynard tries a torp and he just shanks it and it goes straight back to West Coast. And that was it. It was like whatever chance there might have been is gone. I think one of the big problems is if you look at the Collingwood team on the day, and this is not to just, condemn players, but geez, there were way too many guys who didn't fire a shot or who did not fire enough shots. A lot of the...
Why would you? It's only the most important fucking game of the year.
Well, again, Pendlebury, he looks sickly, so I don't know how badly that viral meningitis has affected him. Sidebottom had, 14 possessions, which is just amazingly low for him.
His performance across the entire final series was phenomenal.
And that's something where I would have thought they should have tried to just mix it up and say, let's try and shake this tag or put him into a position where...
I think Greenwood should have just gone around and smacked about half a dozen blokes.
Hoskin Elliott did a few little things, but nothing major. Maynard, again, a few little things. He looked like he was probably hurt by that charge. Not a bump, that charge from Ryan. The guys who actually stood up for me are the guys who get maligned. Taylor Adams, to me, as our best.
Yep.
People were complaining he had a few disposal errors, but like for me, Adams was constantly trying to make things happen. But people were just condemning him. Mason Cox, he stood up. He had a terrible first half.
The second half was great.
The second half, he actually imposed himself on the game.
Marks in defence were great.
And I think if he wasn't there, probably would have lost by 5 goals. Some of that coming out of defence, he actually gave us a way out, and then he took a few marks up forward, and he actually scared him a little bit. Chris Mayne, who I neglected to mention last week, Chris Mayne was fantastic last week because he actually took the game on.
If we'd have won...
He could have been North Smith.
He probably would have been North Smith. Him or Langdon, I think.
I think Adams would have had him, but
okay.
If.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, look, I think Mayne, though, I was stunned by just how good he was on the day. And that's the sort of thing that when you're a journeyman player, these are the games where you should be fucking standing up.
Yep.
And I think a few of the other players should be looking towards him for a little bit of motivation.
And I want to be fair because, we've criticised Chris Mayne the whole season for...
No, you have.
Yep, just me. Sorry, Chris. But like for, doing the practice stuff to win the ball, but then taking a very defensive route in disposing of it. In the preliminary final and in his grand final, he was fantastic. Mm-hmm. He took it on. He took chances. He took a risk. He knew when to lay up and when to go. And I will never bag a player for trying to make something happen. If they get caught, if it doesn't come off, okay, obviously be disappointed. But if they're trying to make something happen, then you understand the logic behind it. And Mayne was fantastic. And seriously, Chris, fucking do that next year, and you are in my top 6 picks. Tom Langdon, another generally really good game, had a few errors. Even that last one when Ryan took the mark that fell on the ground. Langdon was just sort of laying there disconsolate, and he just picked up the ball and he basically gave it back to Ryan while Langdon was still lying down.
He played on.
Yeah, it's like, well, just hold it up there. They're not going to kill you if you, use the ball and push yourself up.
It's the funny thing, it's a parallel that you often see when you watch a lot of these air crash type shows where, planes aren't meant to fall out of the sky is a simple theme. But when they do, it's usually this connected series of fucking bad events that happen that connect the dots. And that one was, it's not like you can't single him out, but it was just a catalyst for everything that happened towards that last 2 minutes.
You take that one further back because...
he's not doing this. He's just doing here's the ball. It's a nice thing to do. Good on you, mate.
Just hold on.
But it's just that it just was just a bad fucking call at the end. But
there's a lot of it though because it starts with Chalor and he's running up to half forward, and if his hamstrings are good, he probably would have just said, "I'm going to take this guy on. I'm quicker." He obviously didn't feel that. I think he had Grundy. He had a West Coast player up to his right who was pacing him, and then he had Grundy on the other side, I think it was. And he probably could have handballed it over the West Coast player and tried to just draw the loose man, but instead he went for a kick into the forward line, which if I was playing kick to kick in the backyard and I had 2 people on the other side and my objective was to just set it in the air so one of the guys could come up over the top and take mark of the year, that was the sort of kick it was. It went over Mychek's head, let McGovern just jump over him. And it was just sort of a total nothing kick. And I know some people have bagged the Goey for hanging back, but I think the Goey did the right thing because he was waiting for a possible spillage. He would have been the only one who was roving. The other 3 would have been out of the contest. But it was just a really poor nothing kick. And that should have been thought about a lot better. And then from that's the play that actually goes forward. And they kick, or Ryan, takes the mark. He kicks it to Dom Sheed. Maynard, the AFL have admitted, was shepherded out of the contest. Sheed takes an uncontested mark and then kicks a really good goal from that position. And for the next 90 seconds to 2 minutes, West Coast hold on, and probably at that time, you weren't expecting Collingwood to do anything because it was like we were really just clawing onto the game as it was, and we weren't going to produce, some...
that moment.
Yeah, and, I think possibly had chances there, but we just Didn't seize them. Again, we just did not have someone who stood up and said, fuck it, I am going to do it. I am going to do something. I'm going to have that great moment. Getting angry now? That's the way it begins.
There's phases you go through. I've moved through the anger one.
I'm staying in anger. I like it here. Going into the game, would you have made changes to that team? So that was probably the first time, I don't know, I haven't checked this, but I imagine being the season it was, it's going to be the case. It was the first time we'd gone into a fourth game with an unchanged lineup.
Yeah, I mean, you approach this two ways, I think. You either do it, what's your mindset going in? Would you have made a change, or retrospectively?
I wouldn't have going into... No, I'm going to ask you retrospectively, but going into that game... I wouldn't have made a change.
No, probably not going in. I mean, really, the only options were those hanging in the wind were Moore and Reid. Moore ruled himself out yet again. Reid, look, I see argument for playing him. Still, the reason why I wouldn't have played him is because you just got no guarantee he would have got through the game.
Yeah.
And that, without fully knowing that, I wouldn't have rolled the dice with him.
And the thing to look at too is... They are probably the only two candidates. You weren't going to bring Fasolo in, and Fasolo was somehow in the moon boot at the game. He hasn't played for fucking 3 weeks. I don't know how you're in the moon boot.
I didn't know that. Why am I not surprised?
So Fasolo was in the moon boot. You're not going to bring Blair in because he's not rapping.
Maybe it's a fashion thing now.
I don't know. You're not going to
Collingwood it probably is. They just think everyone's wearing one. I should be wearing one.
But you're not going to bring Blair in because that's not a like for like. So you're probably looking at like a defender to try and match up their tools. And your two defenders, or your three defenders are Reid, Magden, and Moore.
Blair. Sorry.
No, and possibly McClarty, but none of these guys, some of these guys haven't played at all.
No.
But, Reid hasn't played. When did he last play?
He played,
2006?
Quarter of football then, or something in his last game. It's just too underdone it now.
And Moore hasn't played for about 8 weeks, and that game was frenetic. You don't just drop him into a grand final. If there was someone, like Nathan Buckley at his prime, I'd expect he'd pick up the pace really quickly. But those guys, I wouldn't be just dropping in. And particularly Moore, the other thing with Moore, he's not actually a very experienced player. So it's not like he has this backlog of experience to draw.
He's had about, probably a sum total of 3 games in defence, and that's including all his little bit part cameos.
Yep. So I wouldn't have gone in. So in retrospect, you wouldn't have changed anyone.
To be incredibly unpopular, I probably could have dropped Pendlebury. And that's nothing, a slide or a knock on him. I think whatever Ebola virus he had was still there. I mean,
it's definitely still there. He looks very sickly.
Yeah,
and I don't know if it's just that
slow, not himself. You just really, again, it's hindsight stuff. You shouldn't be taking blokes into a grand final that are suffering in that way.
Well, I'm sure this is something that's going to come out eventually, but yeah, he looked terrible in terms of fitness and strength.
Even the miss kicks and things are just completely un-Pendlebury-like.
Yeah.
So, look, I think, probably didn't work as well. But other than that...
But who would you brought in if you dropped Pendlebury?
I mean, again, that's the issue. There's just nobody there of the same calibre that you would think was poor to have missed out.
So I probably wouldn't have changed it because, again, I don't think there's anyone really there you could bring in. Unless you went just something totally insane. Brought in like Rupert Wills or something.
Well, I mean, he's how many games has he played?
No, about 3/4. But I'm a really big Rupert Wills fan, so I hope he gets his body right. But I don't think there's anyone really to bring in. What I would have probably wanted to see more, especially given our midfield, I don't know what you call it, lack of dominance, lack of assertion, and all that. I would have really liked it if Buckley changed it up a lot quicker. If he got the goal in there a lot quicker, if he, even did just silly things like put Pendlebury to full forward, just get him out of that contest. He's still got height and all that, and just tried to mix it up a little bit. I understand why he didn't, because it was close, and that was the setup that had gotten us that far.
Yeah.
But too many times in Collingwood history, you've seen the setup that's gotten us that far only got us that far, and you would have liked just him to go, you know what, fuck it, I will play the Goey as a ruck rover, I'll play, Pendlebury at full forward, I'll play Treloar in the forward pocket. Treloar's still got a little bit of acceleration there to use as a lead. He's done it this year. So just to mix it up and just to try something different, even to swap Myercheck and Howe at some stage.
Well, I think you're really mindful at that stage of the year, though, to be considering that more of a risk. I think that's probably why they err on the side of caution.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
Because you've got a structure that's carried you this far. I think you have to rely on it to I don't know whether you'd mess with it at that point. I mean, unless you're probably talking subtle changes here, there, just to try it out. But, what if it backfires?
Well, the Pendlebury one and the side one, the two players who've carried our midfield for a lot of the year were really both struggling. And I understand why you keep him there. Like, Sidebottom had that handball out in the last quarter, which shows, he's still got the class and all that to create play. But given the way they were playing in that game, if you take them out and put someone else in there, even if it was just to fucking give, Hoskin Elliott a run in there or something, you're probably not having to... You're not risking losing much because you're not getting much at that time.
We should have probably tagged his tagger.
Well, we should have tagged someone. Maybe.
You think? Sidey, I think, moments of brilliance, but really, at his stage of his career, he should be better at shaking a tag. He just doesn't cope well with them.
Well, I remember Dacos in about 88. Peter Dacos in 1988. Or 89, there's one of those 2 years. He was the premier midfield in the competition.
Does this story involve a nightclub?
No. With Greg Williams was the other one who's been highly touted. And Dacos was just getting tagged all the time. And they go to him, well, you're getting tagged, but you just keep breaking. How do you do it? And he goes, well, they're all playing me on my right, so I'm just playing on my left. I mean, he was dual-sided, so...
It's like the guy from Princess Bride.
Yeah, like Indigo Montoya. Yeah. But I mean, just, he found methods of breaking it. Sidebottom, I don't know what happened at Richmond game, if they tagged him and they just give him enough respect, or if they just didn't give him any respect because they're Richmond and they're arrogant. But, he's 27 or something. He should find means of breaking tags. Interesting, this is the sort of game, when Mick Malthouse was coach, he used to look at big games, he used to look at who stood up and who didn't, and...
Name them afterwards.
Yeah, well, if you look at 2003 Grand Final, we lost by 10 goals. After that Grand Final, quite a few players had lines drawn through their names, and they might have stayed a couple more years just as transitional players, but Malthouse obviously said, I'm not going to win flags with some of these players.
And he was ultimately right.
Well, would you look at this Grand Final loss and say, any of these players are not going to carry us to where we want to go?
Oh, look.
A consecutive Grand Final loss.
There's blokes like Greenwood and stuff just really didn't do much on the day, and really again you wonder what the future looks like to a side with
have to defend Levi Greenwood because he hasn't done much all year.
Well, that's what I'm saying is where are you going with this? How long do you persist with it? At his age, is he going to come good next year?
I like Greenwood, but I don't understand why he's in the side if he's not running or not tagging with someone. These things, there's excursions to half back and shit like that. I just don't get them.
It's shocking.
And I know some of that is because of personnel, so you're just throwing someone back there. It's hard. Personnel, yeah. But yeah, if he's not tagging, I don't see the point of playing him.
No.
That's his role, I would assume. Anyone else? I mean, I lost by 5 points, so you wouldn't think it's jump off a cliff time. But
no, but I think the thing is you can't maintain a status quo. You've lost. You've failed on the big day. You've got to then find improvement. And where's that improvement going to come from? Do you invest time still in these guys that are probably at the peak of their abilities? Or do you invest time in developing someone? You've got 24 games to hopefully get them into a position where maybe they can be good or better or whatnot. But you just don't think that someone at the other end of the age bracket is just going to find that extra 5 or 10% now. It's like you're transitioning away from them, like a lot what Malthouse did do, and start investing more in the youth. And if that means that you cough up a year and don't go back losing, and you lose the next one, then so be it.
Well, I think there's a few players who I'm happy for them to be there, but I would want upgrades in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I don't think it's a case I wouldn't stop with some of them. You just have to maintain that balance throughout the year. But there's a couple of there that I think that could be very quickly usurped by someone a bit more younger, hungrier, and better skilled. Hopefully.
Okay, so let me ask you this. I mean, that's the game from a tactical level and the way it unfolded. Now, this has been highly in discussion, debate. You feel umpiring was a factor?
I don't think it was particularly good in the day. Now, the Collingwood narrative demands that we pin reasons why we lose these things. We've been doing it since Dot. I don't really want to be drawn into that anymore. It's too easy to fall back as a crutch. I think when you look at umpiring, you look at it and you invest in it personally as a supporter. If you look at it objectively, it goes both ways. There's a lot of decisions that we were probably lucky to get away with. That could have been paid against us, especially in that last 5 or 10 minutes. There was ones that probably where they put the whistle away for both sides. I know this one particular instance is the one that's always going to be talked about, the new Harms incident, but no, look, I don't think it was the overall umpired well game. I don't see the sense in when you umpire to the rules, or the best of their interpretation of the rules all season, why there's this mentality of putting the whistle away in the grand final.
We've said that throughout the year. The rules should be
I watched
concrete for the whole 100.
There's a parallel. I watched, and I don't know why, the NRL grand final on Sunday night, and the difference in the way that game is umpired is, you look at it and you think, the guy he seems intelligent. He reasons why decisions were made. The players are allowed to interact and ask questions, and it feels like a bit more of a better flowing overall experience. But it's obviously
But this has been one of my criticisms of umpiring in the AFL. They're not held accountable. You can't criticise them. You can't say that was a bad decision. No one's ever held accountable. So if you've never held accountable, how are you ever wrong?
No,
apparently,
you get a sense in watching this though. It felt a lot more professional than the haphazard thing that we have. When you go week to week and you're not sure what the interpretations are, and usually the first 10 minutes of a game dictates how that umpiring is going to be flowing for the rest of the game, it's sort of against the fact that you're constantly fighting whatever the fucking rules are or meant to be, or there's 12 million interpretations beneath each basic rule that's out there. It's a frustrating experience.
Well, I'll say when I saw a certain name out there, I was I was quite wary of the run we're going to get. I find it amazing that Brodie Grundy apparently just now blocks opposition ruckman
4 times apparently too.
And I don't want to blame the umpire for the loss, but geez, there was some momentum defining decisions, and we kicked the first 2 goals in the last quarter, and then it went back to the centre, and Grundy was called for a block, went straight down the other end, they goaled, immediately turned it around. Varco tackled McGovern on the half-forward line in about the 20-minute mark when we had a few minutes of attack. McGovern tried to kick it, totally missed his foot, hit the ground. Pretty sure that's dropping the ball. Wasn't paid. You get the Maynard one also. And there's just little bits there where I'm thinking, geez, if you just had one of those decisions go the other way, or be paid the way it should have been paid or whatever, then it turns the game back around. Yeah. I mean, it's not saying West Coast didn't get bad decisions. I remember there was a holding the ball on the wing right in front of that. I can't remember who it was, but it was a West Coast guy. He got the handball away, and they called holding the ball, and I turned around to the person and just said, that was not holding the ball.
That was no boating accident.
But yeah, I mean, I really thought it was and I know the consensus is it was well umpired, except for the last 5 minutes where they just let it go. I actually thought it wasn't very well umpired. I thought rules kept changing, holding the ball interpretations kept changing. I thought there was a couple of things that West Coast did who I think they learned from losing to Hawthorn a few years ago that, hey, let's be just rough out there. Let's go for things like shoulder blocks and spears, and let's drop elbows into Hoskin Elliott's head as he's taking the diving marker. I just thought they should have been looked at a little bit more harshly.
But some of that, I don't mind that rough play, because if you win a flag, who gives a fuck if you're rubbed out for 3 weeks for some prick behaviour?
Because you're on the other side of it. It's happening to you. I mean, the Hoskin Elliott one I thought should have been reported. He took a mark, he fell, and he said the West Coast player.
Still, you report him, so what? He gets rubbed out, he's still wearing a premiership medallion.
No, but the thing is, it's one of those things like we talk about Cox. If you actually give a free against the defender doing this, the defender's not going to be doing that the rest of the game, and they're not going to be emboldened to think, I can get away with shit. But they actually have to pull back and be a little bit more wary and play within the rules. And that, for me, is what you need to do in every fucking game. And I said this the whole year. Rules shouldn't change, A, from game to game, and B, they shouldn't have all this context. They'll take a brave umpire to pay that. They're not going to pay that free kick there. They've put the whistle away. What the fuck? Why is the context of the decision making changing within the game? That's ridiculous. If you drop the ball at the 100-minute mark right in front of the goal, like the Howe one I said, that should have been holding the ball. You should pay it. It should be there free. If you pay it all the time, no one's going to complain, because we're going to look at it and go, you pay it all the time. The reason people complain is because these rules just fucking are so fluid. They just change, and it really shits me watching the game. And it's one that, not pet hates, because pet hate would suggest it's a small thing. It's a fucking mammoth hate of mine that the game of AFL Australian rules is umpired so poorly and so inconsistently, week to week, game to game, that no one knows what's ever going to be hot and what's not. And you see it a lot, like one game they might have 20 dropping the balls, and the media will get, they paid a lot of that. And next game, the very next day, you'll get 4 dropping the balls. It's like they've obviously responded to criticism. It shouldn't be like that. Lee Matthews complained about the Maynard block too, and he just said, look, if the free kick's there, you need to pay it. And that's what it should be. That should be the umpiring mandate. If it is there, you
put the
pay.
whistle away or anything.
Yeah, you pay it. You know,
if that's the case, you might as well not have him out there at all.
Well, you should.
The players adjudicate the game.
You might as well just get one player to be responsible for bringing the ball to the game, and he can make the decisions. And if that ball gets kicked out, then another player brings his ball, and he can fucking make the decisions. It's just stupid. It should just be, straight across the board, and it shouldn't matter if the free kick count is 40-10 if that was the way the game unfolded. Yeah. But you often get these things happening where, and I swear, just watch the fucking game. If you get like a free kick count like 18-8 at three-quarter time, you'll be guaranteed that it's going to even up in that last quarter. And a lot of them, and I thought Collingwood actually got quite a few of these on Saturday, a lot of them are these meaningless back pocket half-back free kicks where it's like, well, we had control of the ball, we're taking it out anyway, and you've given the free in the most innocuous part of the ground at the most innocuous time. So, like, who the fuck wanted it? Anyway, I think that's it for umpiring.
Yeah, it wasn't the reason why we lost.
No, we were just not good enough. You lost by 5 points. You were 5 goals up, so you obviously proved you were good enough to get a lead. In the end, it always comes down to fucking take this out of everyone else's hands and just win the game, and that way no one can fucking complain. Let me ask you something. How do you feel about what I'm calling the Collingwood gloat? These are anti-Collingwood supporters, or non-Collingwood supporters, they're anti-Collingwood supporters, who are just celebrating our loss.
So I don't fucking fathom any of this. I'm sure we'll cover a little bit about the ongoing continuous torture of following Collingwood into a grand final later. We've won 2 flags in 70 fucking years. We're no threat to anyone.
I know.
Hawthorn's, they've played in about 17 grand finals in their history, won fucking 13 of them.
In about the last 50 years.
No one fucking says boo.
And they've won 3 in a row. They play this really unsociable, bullying type of football. They wear these really ugly colours, and no one gives a shit. I know Hawthorn supporters who are gloating about Collingwood's failure, and I'm just looking at them and thinking, if we won 3 flags in a row, I wouldn't even know you fucking exist. I barely know you exist now, but you would not care to me. I saw someone else I know does not follow football posting on Facebook, just don't let Collingwood win, don't let Collingwood win. It's like, why? Why? What the fuck? You don't even understand why you dislike Collingwood. I admit I hate Carlton, but I hate Carlton because they fucking scarred me through the 70s and the 80s.
Well, you just laugh at them though.
Yeah, now they're funny, but, there's a motivation there as to why I hate them. I don't go and hate, a fucking dung heap because it exists. It just exists. What is this hate that goes on in perpetuity against Collingwood?
I don't understand it.
And you see it a lot on Facebook. You see it a lot where people are celebrating. I see fucking polls going up. What was the worst incident for a Collingwood loss? The Anthony Rocker goal, not paid in 2002. The Wayne Harms incident in 79, or this Dom Sheed one. It's like people are just reveling in our failure. And
we do a good enough job of that. We don't need your fucking help.
But it's just like,
piss off and worry about your own club.
Oh, well, but that's the other thing. Is fucking how insignificant are your clubs?
Oh, I think they live, I think, through the wish sometimes that they did follow us. Well, for whatever it is, I've no idea. I'm not attracted to it. But people just seem to be fucking drawn to Collingwood one way or another.
Yeah, and they're drawn to Collingwood failure, and they root for it, and they shout for it, and all that sort of shit. And when it happens, they dance and gloat. I've seen Carlton supporters posting all these fucking memes. I'm looking at you fucking finished last. And this is what you're, celebrating Collingwood's failure. Why don't you celebrate the fact you haven't been fucking relevant for bloody 25 years?
It's like Hawthorn have made 2 final series in the last 2 years and bounced out in straight sets. Fucking laugh at them.
No one does, It's like, hopefully they win another grand final and who cares? Collingwood's close! Fucking no! Run for the hills! Just ridiculous. It really fucking shits me. I don't if it was justified. I don't understand it. The thing I really, really annoys me, like I said, there's a number of people I know who hate Collingwood, and I used to do this years ago. I used to say to people, "Why do you hate Collingwood?" It's like, I don't know. It was just this institutional bias that had been passed on from generation to generation. But a lot of people I know just hate them for no fucking... They don't even know why. No. It's just this thing that possesses them.
It's just ingrained in people.
It's fucking ridiculous, and get a fucking life. For every single person who hates Collingwood without a reason, get a fucking life. If you want a reason, then, we'll come and smack you. And then you can say, this is why I hate Collingwood, because I got smacked by the hosts of the Collingwood Rant. Okay, so let's look at Collingwood now from an emotional standpoint, if that wasn't emotional enough. All right. In the 2000s, the Eddie Maguire era, Collingwood had 1 win in 2010 from grand finals, 4 losses, 02, 03, 11, this one, and 1 draw. So from 5 attempts, they've won 1 grand final. And that's basically on average, we win one. Oh, actually, we're a little bit behind now. We usually win 1 in every 4. Since 1959, Collingwood have played in 16 grand finals, won 2, drawn 2, and lost 12, with 6 of those defeats being 10 points or less.
It feels like there's more to the story, though.
I don't think there's any more. No, well, Greg Baum wrote a really good article in some paper or other, Seymour Herald, I don't know where he writes.
The Age.
The Aged. About the personification of Collingwood, about, the identity of making these grand finals and losing them. But the one thing that I really liked the gist of the article. Just looked at the long-suffering Collingwood support and all that sort of stuff. Yep. He's probably wishing he was a Hawthorn supporter so he could hate us.
Wouldn't that be easier?
Yep. But he said at the end of the article, the better team won of the day. We've played West Coast 3 times this year. We lost 3.
It's like an 11 when Geelong beat us 3 times.
But he sort of looked at it from the point of view of, hey, you can't really equate these losses to the other losses. He was talked about how we lost.
Oh, I'll take back what I said then.
He talked about games we lost where we were long shots, talked about games we lost where we were favourites. I mean, we've done it all. And he said, you can't really compare this because no one expected Collingwood to come to amount to anything this year. And they got into a grand final. They played a team against which they were 0-2 for the year, and they then beat us, so they're the best team of the year, and why is anyone comparing it to the other losses and all that sort of stuff? How do you feel about that? Because I wouldn't have to lose my shit.
The killer in this one is, what did West Coast lead the game for? It's some total of about 3 minutes.
I think 90 seconds.
If that, you can't. I mean, they won, so therefore they get the mantle of best team. But geez, were they the best team on the day?
Well, the thing you need to attack from Greg Baum's article. Sorry, Greg, I don't know you, but I'm going to attack it anyway. He's going, West Coast, being a 0-3, so they're the better team. Now, up until 2 weeks ago, Richmond was 0-2 against us, and we overturned that result.
And this is classic Collingwood, though.
Yeah, and what it comes down to for me is I don't give a fuck if we finished 18th and the 16 teams between first and us were all outed from the competition that season for drug charges, and we were then, by default, in the grand final. We're then in it, and once we're in it, you got to fucking take your chances. I don't give a fuck how we got there. I don't care, how much better the other team is, how much of a long shot we are, where we've come from, and all that shit. Once you're there, I don't give a fuck. It's now a level playing field, and you need to find a way to pull this game over the line. And this is what really frustrates me. We talked about it a bit in the match review. Is just you needed someone to stand up and say, "I'm going to fucking take this game," and we just didn't get it. You had
disappointing.
You had too many players who just, I don't know. I don't know if they were shell shocked. To me, they played that first 20 minutes with such verve and imagination and all that, and then the rest of the game they just played with, or most of them played in such a subdued fashion.
Yeah, I mean that could come down to maturity and experience. You got to look at West Coast. They were very big-bodied, older side.
Well, they're a lot hard. I mean, they were there 2 years ago. They lost it, so you had a lot of guys.
Yeah, we'll definitely burn. And that's where you got to hope that where the bulk of this group's mind is at. You play those moments over and over into your head, and you think, the fact that I should have done this instead of this, I've learned from that moment, and I won't do it again.
Yep.
That's what's the best you can hope for.
So, I really look at it to, we had all these injuries and all that sort of shit, and we kept moving forward. I mean, I don't know how we kept finding a way forward. We did. But what I think this side just really needs, and whether this is an indictment on Pendlebury as the captain or just a leadership group or whatever, you need someone who just sets the bar there and turns around and says to everyone else, you're all down here. And it's like we talked about in 2010 when that grand final was slipping away. Maxwell said, and Maxwell wasn't the most skilled player or anything. He had a lot of heart. He read the game well. But, he wouldn't be one of your, top 15 defenders in the league at that time.
He never left you wondering in a final, though.
But he never left you wondering, and he said, he had that psychology of, hey, we're losing this game. And I could sit back here, I'm going to lose it, or I could try something and we might still lose it, but at least I'll fucking satisfy that inner question of, did I do enough to try and win this? And you know what? If you look at that grand final draw, he did a couple of things. It wasn't just that mark. It was the fucking when Rewalt snapped that ball out of the pack and it dribbled toward goal, and Maxwell chased it down and killed it. And that's what this side needed. In 1990, and a lot of people are probably, all our younger viewers, I always say the reason we won 1990 was because of Darren Mullane. He didn't have a particularly brilliant final series or anything, but he broke his thumb. Every time he went out there, he re-broke it. But you know what he did? By being out there, he set the bar up here, and he fucking just showed everyone else, you know what? You cannot be too sore, you cannot be too tired, you cannot be too hurt, because I'm breaking my fucking thumb every game. I'm in agony. So if you telling me you can't run anymore, this is what I'm fucking doing, and this is where you got to hit. And if you look at that 1990 side, I know like Essendon supporters blame the draw for coming back, and they were all a little bit stale and that shit. I reckon once, if you took out that first final, if we just played them all continuously, Collingwood weren't going to lose that year, because they went in there with determination. You had people like Tony Shaw, he said before the grand final to the players, I've played in 2 losing grand finals, I'm going to play in the third. You had guys who were burning.
So does he think he's special?
Well, ask Renee King. But you had guys there who were refusing to lose. You had guys who were showing tremendous strength and courage. And look, also you got to give it to Lee Matthews, because Lee Matthews said, look, sorry, Ronnie McKeown, you've played every game, but you know, you're not going to play the second semi because it just doesn't work in terms of balance. You have people making hard decisions and sacrificing. And this team made some fucking great strides. Goldsuck's comeback, Treloar's comeback, and all that sort of stuff. But on the day, what they really lacked was just that one player to just go,
yeah,
you know what? And I think the goalie got close to that, but you couldn't have him in the centre and up forward. And to me, he was the one guy. And not discounting like Main and Adams and Langdon, I thought had good games. The guy was the one guy when the ball went anywhere near him, I thought they're panicking because they realise this guy can do anything.
Something happen.
Yeah,
and we need a few more of those types.
Yep. And you need some leadership out there, because when this game was slipping away, you didn't have, like Maxwell, whenever you watched him play and games were slipping away or whatever, he was shouting at people. And I'll give credit to Heath Shaw. Similarly with him, he was giving directions, you need to do this, this and this. I really don't see that as much. I think Lyndon Dunn was doing it quite a bit. And then once he went out of that side, you really lost a lot of that leadership.
With that in mind, would you suggest that Pendlebury may not be captain next year?
So this is the elephant in the room.
No, well, to be honest,
I would move on.
Yep, I would too. It's time to reset the playing field a little bit, not too much, but there's a shift I think that needs to be done in terms of building a core leader group that's going to take you into the next 2 or 3 years.
So I think it's
Pendlebury. I mean, he's been a wonderful servant, fantastic footballer, but the end's closer, and you know you don't need to be captain all the way through these days.
No, and I think too. I mean, by taking the captaincy away, I'm not saying get rid of him out of the team.
No. Just
but taking that captaincy away might actually alleviate some of the pressure, so he can rediscover that form. Really big fan of Lyndon Dunn, but for me, it was like, well, how many leaders are we lacking if this guy who's second year into the club is now just been stuck into the leadership group? You know, you really wanted that next generation coming up through Adams and Treloar and Moore and Grundy and all that sort of stuff.
Agree on them.
Yep, you know, and these are the guys who now need to assume the mantle of Collingwood. Verl Young, Darcy Moore aside, they've all been generally durable throughout their careers. Darcy Moore's had sporadic problems, but hopefully they can get his body right. He's still young. But these are the guys who need to then now set the bar up to wherever it is set and saying, everyone else, come along for the fucking run. If you don't make it, then, you know, we're happy for you to leave. I don't know. We don't know what's happening inside the club, but geez, I just feel sometimes like we lack that in the core and that solidity across the board.
Someone has smacked people in the back of their head and remind them what they're out there to be doing.
Well, there would be a YouTube video at the time. Maxwell did that to Fasalo. Remember, he just slapped him on the arm, and Fasalo showed some fear. And it's like, well, you know what? I think Maxwell is showing you how much this means to him, and it might not be meaning enough for you in that game. Mm-hmm. I'm still a fan of Fasalo, so I couldn't get rid of him. But okay, so to the young Collingwood supporters, this is, you know, I spoke to a cousin, and he just said, I'm still shattered. And I was going, welcome to Collingwood. Younger cousin.
I'd like to say it gets better, but
are we cursed?
You fucking almost think so. It's just... It's this. I think, what have we lost? 12 grand finals by 10 points or less. I think that was the stat that was read to me the other day. It's staggering to be so close so many times and not fall over the line or have that day where you do. I mean, the last flag we won was against a side that arguably is more tragic than us.
Well,
and we had to have a fucking draw to achieve that.
With the loss ratio, St Kilda actually worse off than us. I think they've won one, or they have won one, but I think they've lost about 7 or something. So we only lose 1 in 4. So, yay.
Something to hang your hat on.
Well, do we have bad luck? Was that just what it comes down to?
No, I don't think it's you can't really pin it on luck. I think the issue is always we tend to assemble a side that's good, but just never good enough when it matters. And I don't think that's by design or anything. It's you read a lot about the term at the moment on the boards about being too blue collar. I think there's an element of that. You really need those moments of brilliant players to the ones that when the collective isn't working, that they can pick you up and drag you over. And I think we have two potentials, if not, well, you've got to call potential based on age, but Degoe and Steph are the ones that are potentially just going to be... When the ball gets near them, they're going to make magic happen.
I think Grundy is also another one.
Yeah, I agree on that too. But you need, we need maybe 1 or 2 in defence, that'd be good. But you need that little hand-picked group of magnificence to just be what's required when that whole team isn't playing to its best. You can't be up all the time, but you need those ones that will either inspire by an act or have a moment of courageousness that just lifts the team. We need those types, and they were sorely lacking on the weekend.
Well, defensively, I think Maynard's possibly another one.
Yeah, it's good.
I agree. It doesn't necessarily need, Stephenson and Degoe are actually just magical. But as Nick Maxwell showed, he wasn't a freakishly skilled player or freakishly explosive or that. He just fucking had this
guts and drive and determination.
And he reminds me, he was a better player, but like Mark Williams, former Port Adelaide coach, former Collingwood captain. I remember in 81.
Grand final loser?
Yeah, for Collingwood, I remember in 81, he really tried to haul us over the line. And I remember years later, I think it was Peter Dacos was saying, he was the only guy who really knew what it took because he came from this winning culture of the SANFL, Port Adelaide Magpies. But you watch that game, he's the one just sort of going, fuck, like everyone else is just almost playing it by route, like just going, well, this is unfolding. He was like, fuck, I'm going to change the rules here to win this game. And you need some of these guys just going, you know what, shit is going against us, umpiring's bad, this guy's gone off injured, I don't give a fuck, we're going to win. This is what probably Hawthorn did well with Luke Hodge and Sam Mitchell. They had these guys who just said, let's fucking win. And I hope one thing with Collingwood is, if you look at Hawthorn, they lost in 2012, but then they won the next 3. So I hope Collingwood can use this as a springboard rather than just, the opening of Groundhog Day. All right, let's look at this. So moving forward, okay, we've lost by 5 points. And in the end, lost by 5 points. My boss at work said, ultimately you look at that game and, if it went a minute long, you might have won. It was that game that was just so close that it could have just changed.
Or we could have lost by 11 points.
Or 17. So, the scuttlebutt as of tonight, so this might already be announced by the time this comes out, is that Tom Langdon and Darcy Moore are about to be re-signed.
Good.
Langdon had been offered $600,000 to move to Fremantle.
Not North Melbourne?
No, Fremantle. No. And I can understand you might consider that seriously. He's played a losing grand final at Collingwood. What else is there to achieve at Collingwood?
For certain people in life, though, money's not really something that they need to worry about, and Langdon's probably one of those. He needs to stay. He was essential in the second half of this season, considering when everything around him that was a support mechanism fell away in terms of players at one time or another, the season-ending injuries or long interrupted corkies. He just kept getting better and better. Yeah,
and I think the other thing with Langdon, he's actually still relatively inexperienced.
And he's another X-Factor player maybe as well.
He's hasn't had.
Maybe do it for film.
He hasn't had continuity throughout his career. I think last year
was injured for the bulk of the year.
Yeah, and I think even the year before he had issues. So he really just had a good run this year. He's getting into that age bracket where you think, he should be assuming some leadership and coming into his own, all that sort of stuff. The people are saying it looks like Collingwood's going to miss out on May.
Can we talk about this?
So May apparently is named...
we are going to talk about this, good.
Yeah. May apparently is named Melbourne as his destination of choice. I don't know why, but...
I think he's obviously a fucking loser.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, the club's cursed, but... Alright, so let's look at May. Okay, and this would be really interesting. So if he's offered, or if he goes to Melbourne, it would be interesting what Melbourne offers Gold Coast. Now, I saw some trade scenarios being,
bandied about.
Bandied, yes, that's perfect. Bandied about. And one said we give Darcy Moore to Sydney for pick 12, and we have pick 16 or whatever it is from this year, and we package them to Gold Coast for Steve May.
2 first rounders.
12 and 16 for May.
What, is May that good?
Is anyone that good? Would you give that?
To be honest with you, I don't follow a lot of Gold Coast games, but until he was linked with us, I had no fucking idea who he was. Has he had any breakout games? Has he beaten anyone? Has he been outstanding or anything like that? I mean, obviously he's good by size, and he obviously must be able to play as a quality defender. And I think we've made comment that it would be handy to have him. But I don't know though where I'm getting at with this is suddenly where his value is now catapulted to 2 first round picks as being a need. Because I know apparently we've dropped out of the race according to the scuttlebutt of whatever was made up today over the cooler room coffee machine. Gold Coast don't believe we've got anything worth matching what his value is.
Well, what I heard about May was that Gold Coast were trying to get his contract dissolved so then they could get him...
compensation.
Free agent compensation. I would have thought a contract you could just dissolve if both parties agreed. But okay, probably not in the AFL. I'm actually astonished. Once a player is linked to Collingwood, their value just fucking goes up. It's insane. When Treloar was traded to Collingwood, he went for 2 first round picks, which ended up being 7 and 7. So let's just say that, Collingwood traded the future pick in anticipation of actually having a better year, and that next pick was going to be 16 or something. Still 2 first rounders. Fucking Jager O'Meara and Tom Mitchell went to Hawthorn for loose change. Everyone else just gets traded around with no issue, but once they get to Collingwood, it's like, we need a bit more here.
Don't let the bastards win.
And I won't mention journalists like Mark Robinson and that.
Who?
But Mark Robinson and that. But they in the media, they just start inflating value. It's like, if this guy's going to go there, he's worth this, this and this. And it's like, if he was going elsewhere, he wouldn't be worth this. And it's also amazing that how things become an issue. You look at Tom Lynch, he's going to Richmond. That deal has surely been in the winds for several months now. Surely Tom Lynch... I mean, Buckley admitted talking to Lynch, mid-year or something. So obviously Richmond talked to him. When Treloar announced Collingwood as his destination, there's this big furor. Oh, fuck. If Collingwood had been talking to him during the season, they shouldn't be talking to him during the season. That's not, that's against the trade rules. But when anyone else does it, it's like, it's not even news.
But you saw, I suppose it was probably Robbo, but that shift in the media towards when,
farting?
Yeah, when the time of the day where Lynch was being linked to Richmond, it was like, they're going to be unstoppable now and all that sort of thing. Like, nobody questions how after winning a flag and with that list and stuff, how they can actually afford him. But the minute he's linked back to Collingwood, it's suddenly the story is, it's not fair that these guys go to clubs on the cusp. All the bottom clubs meet.
And you should do the right thing and stay there and all that.
Fucking hell.
Again, that goes back to the Collingwood gloat. You get people who are
that'd be a good name for a show.
Yeah, the Collingwood gloat. Well, we could get Mark Robinson, just call it the Collingwood goat.
And what would the goat be doing with Mark Robinson?
Just leave some rubbish. You can rummage through it and eat it.
No, that's not what was going through my head.
No, I'm just trying to be a little bit more polite. I don't understand. I mean, I'd love May to come to Collingwood, but I'd love him to come to Collingwood at his actual
market value.
Yeah, not, you're getting not only are you getting 2 first round picks, but we're also giving up Darcy Moore, who's probably a 10-year player and a pretty special talent. So let's just give all this up.
Yeah, it just makes no sense.
It's fucking ridiculous. We were linked to Marcus Adams for a little bit from the Dogs, but I've been told that's off the table, so I don't know.
So that was quick.
Yeah,
we're only linked to him 10 minutes ago.
Yep. And been linked to Jack Loney from St Kilda, who's, guess his height?
112 centimetres.
You're pretty close. It's 170.
He's a Collingwood 6-footer.
Yeah, so I don't know if Collingwood's... I mean, for me, this would be a little bit of concern that they're thinking Jamie Elliott, who's been re-signed for a year, and Carl Kirby, who they just haven't announced what's going on with him, that Collingwood feels, look, these two are probably not going to come up. We hope they do, but they're probably not going to come up. And Fasolo's on the way out, so we need another small forward. So that's what I think they'd be thinking.
I also saw a cut and paste of Dylan Shields' head on a Collingwood jumper yesterday, so that's another one that's been linked to us.
Ah, well, I don't even know who the fuck he is. I do know who he is, but I don't know anything about him.
He's a midfielder. We need more of them.
Well, can never do if we might have the template for the future.
Yeah, no, it's worked well so far.
Yep. Okay, so I don't know. I mean, all this trade speculation comes out, and everyone's linked to us. And I've told people who keep sending me rumours, just don't fucking tell me until these deals are inked. I don't want to know, because everyone is just somehow connected to us.
It's a fun time of the year, though.
It's a shit time of the year.
Apparently, you can now on the radio and TV just talk about it 24/7 because it's such a dynamic, changing environment. Who's going where?
I hear Buddy Franklin's come to Collingwood.
Is he?
I
heard he came and then left.
I hear we're trading Gerald Blair to Sydney for Buddy Franklin and their first round pick.
I think we've been shortchanged there.
Yeah. So we should ask the second round pick. It's a very valid rumour that we've heard. Okay.
Not just made up.
But that's how most of them emerge.
That's entertainment.
Copeland tip. Who do you think will win the Copeland this year?
Don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Who would I think win the Copeland? You think side bottom probably.
I'll give it to Grundy.
Yeah, good one, but I think probably side bottom. It'll be close.
Yep.
It's on Stream Live, I think. This week. That is a good way to kill a night, literally.
Yeah, it's like watching. It was really good though with the Brownlow where Mason Cox tweeted, so it's just Gil reading out votes for 3 hours. It's like, I think that sums up pretty much every...
Well, I'm looking forward to the rousing speech pulling the masses together about how we can recover from adversity. Surely no one writes this anymore. We just cut and paste it from the archives, don't we?
Just as long as Eddie McGuire doesn't come out and all the trophies, the Premier trophies.
Year concerned.
Okay, so how do you feel about 2019?
Oh, well, I hope it's got some nice weather. There could be a few holidays involved.
How do you feel about Collingwood in 2019?
I can't even get past this last weekend, let alone think about next year. Look, you've got to be optimistic. This is a crushing fucking moment. But, you pick yourself up and you go to the footy again next year. It sounds like it's an arduous event. I'm optimistic. Maybe 2020 could be a realistic tilt again. I don't think just because we make it this year, there's an expectation that we'll obviously front up again next year and have another crack. It'd be nice if we did and fucking won, but what fantasy world do I live in?
Well, you'd have to look at...
I'd want to see continued improvement,
yeah.
And I'd want to see some of those older, less important types start getting phased out.
Yeah.
And that's where I'd happily almost... not happily, but if we had to skip a year to be a better overall win a fucking flag side, that's where I wanted to see us go to now. I think we almost overachieved this year considering the adversity and stuff. Yeah. So I'd still want to see that. I wouldn't want to take this as a granted thing. You failed, for want of a better word. You've got to learn from this and become better.
Yeah. So look, at the moment, I couldn't give a fuck about 2019. I seriously am that despondent about the loss.
I hear.
And for me, as I was saying last week, I really banked a lot of we can redefine the club, we can reinvent it and all that. But as I said...
Or we can just do what we're good at.
As I said, maybe you can do what Hawthorn did and use it as a springboard for greater success. I mean, that's what I really hope for. But at the moment, I haven't been this deflated since after the 2003 grand final loss.
This one really hurt.
This one really hurt because I thought this one was just so possible. And
right up till 2 minutes.
And I thought it wasn't only possible, I thought like they can win it and you'll get this insane belief that just pours through the club and they will go, you know what, we don't have to be the Collingwood of old. Yeah. We can now be something different. And all that stuff about Buckley's cultural change and all that would come to fruition, and he was getting rewarded for all the fucking hard work he's put in, all that shit. I know, like Jeremy Howe said, Jeremy Howe said, we have the formula to be great and all that sort of shit, but in the end, you can talk all you want. It's now coming down to you're going to have to prove it. Next year, we're not going to have the draw that we had this year. again, though, in the AFL, you could get a tougher draw, and 4 of the top teams could just plummet, and 4 of the bottom teams could come up, so the draw could just turn out.
It's almost irrelevant seeing how haphazard each season could be.
But looking at this year, we struggled against the teams the teams inside the top 8. We got close
up until the finals, of course.
Yeah, in the end we went 2-2 in the finals, but we got close to a lot of them, but we didn't beat them. We're going to have to find a bit of improvement to just start pushing us over the line in those games, because you cannot rely on an easy draw and all that sort of shit to push you through. And I think to an extent that really did help us this year. We did have an easier draw, which positioned us well, and then once we got to the finals, we found that extra, but probably some of the teams around us, like Richmond, struggled a bit in the prelim, and GWS had players, going down left, right and centre, so we had a little bit of an edge over him. But as far next year at the moment, I think some of it's actually going to depend on if anything happens in trade week. If we actually get anyone, and I can look at it and go, okay, well, we've added this to the mix. That's where the improvement's going to come from. Let's go to next.
We literally, no pun intended, short of key position defenders, and that's got to be where the focus is. And I think this is an area where are we talking about this in the future, or am I covering?
Yeah, no, you can cover it.
Yeah. When you look at the Meercheck model, there's surely a number of matured body, 24, 25-year-old VFL defenders that are probably jumping to have a shot like he did and make something of themselves, and maybe that motivates you to be good at AFL standard really, really quick, because you've got one shot and you're not going to get a second chance after this. So.
The other thing of my check, he's 24, 25. He's come into the AFL system with a pretty mature body. Usually the route is you come in as an 18-year-old, you're like Stevenson, you're 60, 70 kilos. It takes you 3 years to bulk up and get to that place where you're physically competitive, and that's what gets you starting to match it with everyone on the game to game. But my check's physically almost already there. Obviously, could be muscled up a bit more, but all that. But he's got that 4 or 5 year advantage over 18, 19-year-olds, and the other 24, 25-year-olds will be the same. They'll have physically mature bodies. They would have been playing regularly in the VFL or whatever competition, MOFL or SANFL. And there's been other players. I think Pritis, West Coast was another guy that came from the Waffle as a lower pick and that sort of thing. So these guys are out there. If you get them in the system, they can actually do something.
Because you can't hang your head on. I think Reed and Goldie have got another year, but you're not going to see too much of them, I wouldn't have thought.
Well, if you take out the injuries, I don't think Goldsack would have played this year. If you had Dunn and Schoenberg in there, I don't think you would have fit Goldsack in at all. So he was really, and this is what we said when, we're saying we should play him. He loved Goldie, but he was really the best of what was left, and he struggled.
He's the last school kid picked.
Yeah. He struggled valiantly. Oh, yeah, he battled valiantly and all that sort of stuff. But he is now getting on that side of the age bracket where you look at him, Reed, also Dunn, who, 30 plus.
32, I think, at the start of next year or something.
And some of these older guys can just plummet suddenly. And
especially when you're trying to recover from a Rico too.
Well, I'm really curious. Dunn says he's going to be ready for round 1.
Yeah,
so,
I don't believe that.
Well, Sack got back in 6 months.
Different body types, though. I would have thought Dunn with a big, heavier frame would be a lot more potential for strain on the knee and a slower recovery, but what do I know?
Well, none of us know anything, really.
And we've proved that all year.
Yeah. Just any final thoughts about the grand final loss?
I've got young kids, so 2 things around this. You spoke a little bit about before about that, that turning point. My kids just got so invested in the finals this year and the grand final and stuff, and they're still very young, not enough to actually understand the pain of losing. But this would have been a great introduction to Collingwood for all that next generation of young kids to sort of come into it winning the flags. It's something I never grew up knowing until 1990. And on Sunday morning, having to explain to my 2 boys why we lost is probably one of the harder things I've ever had to do. That's obviously first world problem stuff.
But at least they were introduced to profanity.
But it was like this fucking Collingwood circle of life. It took me back to me being a kid and Dad trying to explain to me why we don't win them. And you think, fuck this club. At one point, it's not like we're talking years for something to change. This has been decades this has been going on. And you'd like to be optimistic and hopeful and all those sorts of things, but the track record's not really fucking helping stuff. And I remember 81. I think it was the last time that I let that club make me cry. And walking out of the G on the weekend, I was that damn fucking close. It was killing me.
Well, absolutely,
absolutely killing me. And I went to an incredibly feral place after that loss. I think it was the only way for keeping composure. But I'm just getting too old to feel this. I want some reward for all the investment I put into this. And that's again, first world problem stuff. But it's just time to turn the corner. Collingwood, be the club that you should be. Just go back to winning every fucking thing. Make us happy. Everyone's happy when we win. The kids are going to get involved. Like I spoke about it during the year with when you go to Auskick and you see the amount of Richmond and Hawthorn jumpers, and you think, when I was a kid, they didn't exist.
Yeah.
Richmond, there's plenty of them supporters around, but everything was just about Collingwood, and our numbers are diminishing, and we need the success to be a successful club, if that makes sense. But the thing is, people are going to taper off if we keep falling over. The amount of people long term that this week have pretty much pulled the stumps up and walked off home and said, I just can't do this anymore. It's incredible. And look, you probably think most will come back.
Yeah.
Because we're like an abused person. You just keep returning back to your abuser. But we just can't do it forever.
All this is why I'm so despondent, because I thought this is the chance to reinvent the club. Like I said, they might still do it. They might use this as a springboard. But it is that cycle that it goes over and over and over. And you know what? The changes can
It's Collingwood Day again.
Changes can be made culturally because they happen. Carlton... I remember my older brother was talking about listening to, the 68 grand final. One of these grand finals in the 60s where Carlton played. I think at Essendon or something like that. I can't remember which one. But he goes, he was going for Carlton. We're going for Carlton. He goes, well, nothing back then. And they were, because then they won in 70, 79, 80, 81 and all that sort of stuff. And that's when they actually became a really hated club. So they were pretty insignificant. Hawthorn's another really good example of a club that was insignificant and then they just had this great success. However they did it, no one knows, or sure, Hawthorn historians might guess. But even Geelong did the same thing to an extent. They were a bit of a joke. They won in 2007, in 2009, 2011. They've won 3 flags and all that. So you can reinvent the club and become something greater than what you were. Obviously, it's not easy. Otherwise, everyone would do it. But I think whenever you come to these junctures in your club history or your future history or whatever, you get that fork of do you go left or do you go right? And too often we've just gone, well, let's take the left part. Oh, grand final loss. And we just keep doing it. And that's what's frustrating. I will say one thing. I am, having read Nathan Buckley's autobiography, All I Can Be, a number of years ago.
Was that the full title?
Yeah. He seems painfully aware of how full of shit this club can be. How self-congratulatory and
that's a big problem.
Full of hype and all that sort of shit. Collingwood's the greatest. I mean, I don't want to fucking hear that. I really don't want to hear that because we're obviously not. And all that sort of stuff. And reading his book, this is quite a few years ago, so he might have been changed by the culture of being there constantly. But he seemed to be aware of all that sort of shit. And I would hope that he is the sort of guy that takes this loss and he actually packages it as a motivator. I remember in 2012 when Hawthorn lost and I saw Alistair Clarkson speak at their club function. I thought, fuck shit. He spoke really well. And he spoke in a way where he put it all in context, but he obviously knew how to take this loss and go, okay, we're going to disassociate ourselves from it other than to use it as motivation. Then they won the next 3. So I'm hoping Buckley's that sort of person.
As a parallel, I remember watching on the couch. I can't remember the guy's name. He used to be a St Kilda player, and he went to Hawthorn before they had that massive
Russell Green,
that's it. And he talked about that playing for St Kilda was just you rocked up to training pissed, and you kicked the footy around, you went and drank, and you played some games on the Saturday, and that was it. And as soon as he walked in the doors at Hawthorn, he goes, all they did was just talk premierships. Yeah. And it's ingrained in that club, and their results pretty much reflect the fact that they live and breathe to win flags. I don't think we're there, and that's where we need to be. We talk a lot of talk at Collingwood. There's a lot of self-congratulation, a lot of talk about wonderful things that we just fail to deliver on.
Apparently Hawthorn will have the number of what their next flag is around the club and go, this is the next one we're going for, this is the next one we're going for.
The blueprint for success.
Yeah, and they released I think it was called Hawthorn 2050, which is a a blueprint of what was going to happen over the next 23, 24 years. How they won another flag in the next 3 years and another this many and that many years and all that sort of stuff. And they've broken it all down. And I was like, well, fuck, that's brilliant. Because you're actually laying out a plan of what you're wanting to do. And obviously, things might happen which force you to deviate at times, but at least you've always got that as a roadmap to come back and go, this is the direction we're going. Whereas I think at times, I think all the time, Collingwood's been winging it, just hoping for the best, getting there. And you know what? I mean, the other thing too with Collingwood, and we've talked about this a lot, is, okay, you're on 15 flags, you're behind Essendon and Carlton on 16, and Hawthorn's on 13 now. So Hawthorn's right behind you. You used to talk about being the greatest club and all that sort of shit. You used to talk about having this and that. You don't have anything. Richmond has the most members. A lot of them might be sheep that have been signed up or whatever. But in terms of numbers, they've got the most members. Carlton and Essendon have got the most premierships.
We do hold the record for the most grand final losses.
Well, yes, that's a great one.
And that'll never be taken away from us.
Yep. But don't walk away saying, we're the greatest, this, that. We're not. Okay? I'm not saying this as criticism. Just saying as reality. We are not the greatest team, not the greatest club in the league. And if you look at it statistically in terms of flags, we're only up there with, just in front of Bulldogs in terms of how many we've won in the last 50 years, or we might even be even.
In the modern era.
Yeah, in the modern era. Yeah, I'm talking about post World War II. But people still run around like we're the greatest. We're not. Take away that fucking that hype. Take away that. Sorry, I'm going to just say this. Take away that delusion. Yep. We're not the greatest.
And the constant idolisation.
Yep.
Doesn't matter win, lose or draw it. Oh, we love everyone.
Why would you push yourself above and beyond when you're getting celebrated for just existing? And I want this club to be the greatest club in the fucking country. I want this club to have all the records and all that shit. But you know what? Just realise that comes at a price, and it needs to be earned. It's not just something you can say and use as a tagline, as a marketing catchphrase and all that shit. You need to earn that. And and the fans and everyone at the club just needs to just pare back and go, okay, let's just get rid of all the shit and let's just focus and let's win this. And I mean win in the actual literal sense of earn and strive for accomplishment and achieve. And then by doing that, then the plaudits come and you can, go on. Do you ever hear Hawthorn going, we're the greatest club around? They never say it, and they are the greatest club of the last 50 years. But they don't run around celebrating, we're the greatest club, we're the envy of the nation, we're this and that. They don't say any of that shit. We've got to stop perpetuating this myth.
Yep.
We might have been 60 years ago, we're not now.
Yeah, the people's club, the working club, the images of feeding people in soup kitchens and stuff, that's all fine. You can do that. But stop making that the thing that you hang your hat on. Win some premierships. That's what we're all in this game for. Be a good, solid corporate role model, citizen, all that sort of thing. But there's just too much of that in the front, and there's just not enough success to marry up to that.
Well, the thing is, in 50 years, whoever comes after us doing the next show and all that sort of shit, they'll look back at the 2018 grand final. They won't see the contentious free against, or the contentious non-free with Maynard or anything. All they're going to see is West Coast beat Collingwood. In 2010, no one's going to see that, the ball bounced strongly for Milne. All they're going to see is it was a draw. I'm sure if we look back at grand finals from 50, 60 years ago, there was events in all those that were controversial and all that sort of shit might have contributed to the result or not getting the result, whatever. But in the end, all that matters is the print in history. And history is recording West Coast as the premier this year. It is recording Carlton Essendon as the leading flag, what do you call them, flag runners, in the competition, and that Hawthorn's on 13, all that shit. You know what? History records winners, and they don't give a fuck about anything else.
Nor do they care about how many bowls of soup you dish out.
Yeah, so let's just fucking win some flags. I know people say, oh, that's what we're trying to do. Well, you know what? Okay, great, but let's just have a little less Collingwood about it, and let's have a little more just Hawthorn about it.
Knuckle down.
Yeah. Spook.
Yes.
In a single word, how do you feel about the 2018 grand final? Still livid. So this is the final episode of the Collingwood Rant for the year. Big thank you to Spook, who's cut all this and put it together every week for the last 4 or 5 months, however long it is, 6 months. Sometimes I've actually filmed twice in a night. So massive thank you to Spook. Give him a like on
Askbook.
Yep, on Facebook, on YouTube, or whatever. But we will be back with other stuff on Imagine.
On Imagine?
On Imagine.
We're doing a whole episode on Imagine.
So we'll be back with other stuff throughout the summer, I'm guessing.
Any excuse to wear the shorts in front of the camera.
Yeah. Any final words, Spook, in relation to anything?
No, I'm just going to be fucking manically depressed for 6 months.
Really, that all?
Yeah.
Oh, well. So, see you next year at the football.
Mm-hmm.
See ya.